So, Julie Verni, we touched a little bit on a class you said was called professional practice. And I know in engineering we had one class called fundamentals of engineering. It's been a while, but it kind of tried to steer you toward a concentration with like mechanical or chemical. But I don't think we had a class that steered you toward like, this is what sales is. This is what project management is. This is how business works. This is what an engineer might do. Is that what your class did? Or just talk a little bit about what that class was and maybe how it's helped you.
So that class was great. Pratt was a good school in general just because all of the faculty were adjunct. So everybody was working and had their own office or whatever.
And that means that adjunct means they have a position in the field as well?
That's their full-time job, and usually they just teach a class or two at Pratt.
Oh, nice.
So that was awesome. And one of the greatest things about the professional practice classes, it was taught by people that was like the only class they taught. They were full-time.
Freshman year?
Third year. They waited for us to have a little bit more experience before they threw that at us. But that's actually a big emphasis in architecture, is for people to eventually like have their own practice. And so a little bit of that class was, teaching you sort of how to work in an office setting. But a big chunk of it was also, and it was always a little premature, but it was, a good thing to start to learn about. But it was, what it's like to run a company and like the things that you should look out for in your professional life to aid you in opening your own company at some point in time. But they also did everything between, we would do resume development, cover letter development, how to interview, what to do in interviews.
Cool.
What your portfolio should look like. That's a big thing with architecture, because you can't just submit a resume. Like, they don't really give a damn what's on your resume. You got to prove it. You can't just say, oh, I worked at this office and I worked on these projects. The first thing they'll ask you is, let me see it.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of structure to that you don't, how else would you know? So that was a big part of that class too, was helping you prepare to get your first job, or even, after that. And then sort of later in the semester is when they started to emphasize more, if you decide to open your own office, these are the kinds of things that you should do, and what you should look out for. And that actually
what's an example?
So I'm trying to think again. It's been a long time for me as well.
Yeah, is it like business? Like a business class would, of course, talk about how to run a company, like entrepreneurship. Like, it's talking about some of those things, like what it takes to values, or how a company is structured, that kind of thing? Yes.
So it was a little bit of both. It was more like a business class, yes. That they talked about, the different ways you can like professionally structure an office, like so LLCs or LLP or PLLC or whatever. I don't remember any of it. I should remember it though, because it's on the architecture exams.
We'll know soon.
Yeah. I know them now, but I didn't then. So that was a big part of it, but also, the sort of client relationships, how to speak with clients, how to sort of navigate between clients and either your employee or at one point in the class, and then also your boss at another point in the class. Because when you're working in an office, even if you're not the boss, you might be the point person between the client and the firm. And so, sometimes your boss isn't involved in the project every day, so you have to get them involved. But if it's your office, you might have it structured differently than that. So there's just a lot of sort of ins and outs of the way that
the class taught you how to like communicate with your boss, or communicate as a boss.
Yes.
Interesting. This seems like a very, very necessary class that probably not a lot of people in a lot of other majors get.
Yeah, it was a very necessary class. Honestly, I thought it was a little like there should have been more of them. There was only one class, one semester. I think it would have been beneficial for it to be a two-parter.
Like and the 3 credits?
It was 3 credits. And they sort of made it a two-parter, that they had it one semester was professional practice. The next semester was construction documents, which is another huge part of running a firm. But one was sort of like the business and development side, and the other side was like the technical, like you need to be an architect side. And I think that they probably could have done like another of the professional development class, but I really lucked out in that class because I had an amazing teacher. He knew so much. He had been in the field forever. He was a super nice guy, very encouraging, like not coddling, but very like, this isn't good enough and I know you can do better than that. Like he's very like a total New York guy. But he was awesome and he had so much knowledge. Whereas I know sometimes like at Pratt, the same class was taught by many people. And so I know there were some younger professors, which in some cases is best. But in this particular class, I felt like I was at an advantage by having a little bit more of a seasoned guy teaching me.
Yeah. No, and the adjunct professor point on top of it hits home for me because we had a lot of professors that did research. That was their primary function. And then they would have to teach this class. They probably didn't want to. To me, as a student, it didn't seem like they wanted to. I didn't get much from it. They, read chapters 1 and 2 tonight and do some problems, and the test will be either you'll fail it or you pass it. That didn't sit very well with me. I mean, made it through, but it seems like being a bit more in touch with business would help the majority of students, because the majority of students aren't going to go on to be, doctorates of engineering or similarly doctorates in architecture, if that exists.
Yes, or architecture theory or morphologies or whatever other theoretical architecture that there's plenty of.
Yeah. Cool. Well, petition to NC State to have an engineering class like that. Cool. Thanks, Julie.